Hello, everybody, and welcome to the League Bound podcast. I'm your co host, Branden Blue, and today is an exciting day because we are finally doing our big boards heading into the new college basketball season. I'm here with my guys, Jake and Cameron. How are y'all feeling today?
I'm feeling good. We're going right into the college basketball season starting this week. And so, with the NBA kind of fully en route now, I'm excited to get the college game going. So we have plenty to talk about throughout the weeks.
It's the best time of year right now. We got college football, NFL, we got NBA, college basketball about to start. Everything we all love, all the sports. Everything's going at once.
Yeah, and I think today's an especially exciting time because, like I said before, college season is starting, but that means we can finally do our preseason a little bit, I guess, way too early big boards. Not really big boards because it's just the first round, but with the three of us, I feel like it would be kind of tedious to go through all 60 of our selections. But doing the first round, I still feel like you get a good idea of who the big names are, who are some guys that are like seriously in contention for their spots, and we're just kind of floating around. So without further ado, we'll start with Jake first, and then I guess we can go me and Cameron after. All in all, I'm just pretty excited to get into these big boards. And all right, so this year we got some fancy graphics for our big boards. Just reuse the template from last year. But Jake, now's the time for you to take the floor. We'll give you some time to kind of go through, and then afterwards we'll all kind of ask questions, pick your brain a little bit about what went into it.
Yeah, so first off, specifically with some of the younger players, since it's still going into the regular season starting this week, there's still a few of the freshmen or maybe international players that I'd still like to get a deeper look at. And so I'm excited to see kind of how that aspect of it changes even throughout the first month, let alone the whole season. But you'll notice at the top, it's a lot of young players, freshmen, and then there are a few returning players like Yaxel Lendeborg inside my top 10. I think he's probably going to be one of the best players in college basketball this year. And because of his offensive skill set, I think he's definitely going to be one of the best players overall in the class. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll go top 10 in the draft. But in terms of talent and production, I think he's definitely going to be one of the better options up there at the top. And then there's also a few players that are returning players that I liked in last year's class. I'm a big Mackenzie Mgbako fan. I think his game is perfectly translatable for an NBA role player off the bench as a perimeter defender and shooter. So wanted to get him inside the top 30. And you'll notice there's a couple of schools that have a lot of players in this early season big board. Duke, I'm very high on a lot of those guys. Some of them at the back end of it, I have seen less of so far, but I think maybe the headliner is having Cameron Boozer at my number one on the big board. I know a lot of people have him maybe 2 or 3, but from what we've seen in the preseason, I think he might be the most dominant player in college basketball, and I feel like he had to go number one.
All right, Cameron, do you have any questions for him?
Yeah, let's kind of stick there for a little second here. So you do have Cameron Boozer number one. Are you concerned at all about how it'll translate to the NBA game? Because I agree with you. He actually might be the best college player, like out of anybody this year. Like he is probably has a really good chance to win Player of the Year. But are you concerned at all about how to translate?
I think some of his stuff might have a bit of a slower transition because a lot of these preseason buckets, he's utilized his strength and kind of gone through contact. So I think there could be a bit of a learning curve early on when he's going up against NBA level 4s and 5s on a nightly basis, figuring out how to use angles rather than just out strength everybody. But just the fact that he's already shown off an insanely high motor in terms of grabbing rebounds. His perimeter shot has looked comfortable and strong from different spots along the 3-point line. And I feel like, honestly, his handle has gotten better over the few preseason games that we've seen. So I'm excited to see after a full season at Duke as that number one option, how much his handle improves from on the perimeter.
Yeah. I mean, at the top, they're all so good. And it's been such a small sample size that like I think all three of us have different kind of top three placements because I've seen everybody's, but I'm not really mad at any of them. Like you can make a really good argument for everybody to go number one, or at least be number one on your big board. And for Boozer, he's a guy who like I do have some questions about like I guess the translation, but I still think he's gonna be like an insanely good basketball player. So yeah, Boozer is a guy I can definitely see being there, and like we all just mentioned, I feel like I think Boozer and Peterson could have National Player of the Year type campaigns, but I think Boozer, it's what he's gonna do is just gonna be out of this world because of the stat sheet stuffing. But with your top five, I did kind of want to get more of a feel for why you have Yesufu over Brown. And that's not even something I'm particularly, I guess, dislike. Because I see a lot of the concerns with Brown, but I am kind of curious what made you put Yesufu so high. And I'm not even saying that that's like extremely high, but that's just something I haven't typically seen before.
Yeah, I feel like in the preseason, Mikael Brown Jr. has had some ups and downs, and I still feel like his one good game in the preseason deserves to put him inside the top 8. But I think we saw some of the flaws in his game that could potentially, if he doesn't solve them throughout the season, could kind of hold him back from being inside the top 5. Whereas Tuna Yesufu, I've pretty much only been impressed by with his physicality, his ability to get downhill, and to come into college basketball at a school like Baylor and be such a young player, but look so college ready right out of the gate, I feel like is really impressive. And that's why I kind of have him in my top 5 to start the year.
Okay, so something else I want to ask you about Red Bull is I'm pretty sure out of all three of us are the highest on Kareem Lopez. I've seen his stock kind of like vary at some places. Like some places they're steadfast, that keep him high. Some people drop. You just talk about a little bit about what you like about his game.
I feel like at 6'8", at 6'9", potentially, his ability to work on the perimeter and shoot the basketball is something that is definitely going to be highly valuable. And I think in this draft where we're seeing a guy like AJ DeBonsa and Nate Ament and even Tunda Yesufu as these bigger perimeter, almost wing type players, I think Kareem Lopez is definitely behind them, but I would say he's probably the next best in terms of like freshmen or like first year players eligible for this draft class because of his scoring ability. He's up over 10 points per game overseas, and at that age, I feel like that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and okay, another one. This is actually about an omission, and that is one of the guards who's returning, Bennett Sturts. Because I noticed Tahad Pettiford is up there. And for me, like before this, Pettiford and Sturts were like, I think they're two different players, but in a lot of ways, I kind of viewed them in a similar tier. I might be drunk for saying that, but in my big book, yeah.
What you're saying, they're completely different players, but at the next level, they might project to play the same role as like your backup point guard.
Yeah, and ultimately, I left Pettiford off mine just because of the size and like, I mean, Sturts is only like 6'3", but I don't know. I just felt like it was a safer bet to just kind of leave him in a second round type of tier. But what was kind of your thought process in leaving Sturts off?
I think first, I mean, his time at Drake was obviously really good production, but we've seen Todd Pettiford play his time so far in the SEC, and he's had ups and downs, but we've seen when he does have those good games that he's definitely good enough and a quality player in one of the best conferences in college basketball. And I don't think it'll take very long for me to maybe bump up Bennett Sturts, but we just haven't seen him play a full season in a power conference like where he's going to be at Iowa with the Big Ten. Obviously, he had a really amazing run through March Madness last March and April, but I'm excited to see kind of what he's developed and worked on in the offseason to that he'll be able to lead an Iowa team rather than kind of being a big fish in a smaller pond at Drake.
Yeah, I think he's had like some success early. Like he's had some success in his career, but I do kind of agree with you. There's a small part of me that wants to see it against like a higher tier level athlete to like kind of get a gauge of what he'll see in the NBA. The Big Ten is still like not necessarily the best athletes in the country. Like I think that title probably goes to the Big 12 or SEC, but there's definitely a step up in competition. I'm interested to see how some of his game kind of translates. Like when I've watched him, he has like he kind of reminds me of like a slower Austin Reeves a little bit. Like he uses his body really well. He gets to a lot of he runs pick and rolls really well. He's a really good passer, but I want to see if it'll work at the same rate it did at Drake. Now,
Yeah, I definitely understand the sentiment behind it, just because for me, I think I've seen a lot of people who have him in that top 10, and I just don't know if I'm sold on it. Like, again, the numbers at Drake were really nice, and like, I don't want to be that guy, but age too, I think will also kind of play a part. But for what it's worth, I feel like when he gets to the NBA, like, he seems so mature and skilled already that I think he won't have that much of a learning curve. But with that, you just never know. And for me, it is kind of like a just wait and see. But I went ahead and put him in my top 30. But I may have had him in my top 20, maybe even higher. But I was like, I think he could be like a Walter Clayton kind of guy who older, still goes this year, especially if he has anywhere near the same efficiency he had last year.
he's somebody that's like, depending on how it looks at Iowa, if it looks the same as it looked at Drake, I think he would like shoot up my board really fast. It's just kind of that last piece of I wanted to see it at the next level.
Yeah. And I feel like also after Mikael Brown, there is kind of a toss up in like who's the next guard, or I guess point guard, I should say. Like, I think for me, and I know Jake has him high too, but that's kind of why I put Phylon so high up too, because I'm like, with the tools he has, like, I think he could jump up pretty quickly. But then also, I'm just like, I don't know who else is really going to take that spot. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Well,
an interest. Or go ahead, Jake.
We've seen, players have pretty good freshman years in the past and then come back as a sophomore and be like leaps and bounds better and help improve their draft stock. Like when I think about LeBaron Phylan, I think of someone in the past like Ayo Sumu, who had a good year in his first season at Illinois, and then his second year was even better and helped establish himself as a clear-cut NBA prospect. And now with the Chicago Bulls, he hasn't really turned into necessarily a main contributor or a big player for them, but off the bench, I would assume was a really good point guard and creator for that team. So I think that provides a lot of value. So someone like LeBaron Phylan, who might be fighting for a spot at the top of the draft because he's maybe 1 year older than a guy like Caleb Wilson, for example, if he's kind of in that same range at the end of the year. I think there's a way to think about it as a positive rather than a negative.
All right. If there's anything else we want to add, we can move on to. Did I say mine or Cameron's next? I don't think it matters. We can just do Cameron's. All right. Solid big board, Jake. All right, Cameron. So you want to explain your board to us, and then after you do that, me and Jake will put you back in the hot seat.
Okay, so I kind of broke my board down in a few different tiers here. So at the first few players, AJ, Darren, and Cameron, I kind of have as like the potential franchise changes, like the guys you draft. Like we're going to throw a party on draft night if one of our teams gets one of these guys. So those three I had in a tier. Then I have a tier of another three guys of Caleb Wilson, Mikael Brown, and Nate Mick. Those are guys that, like, I think if everything shakes how it's supposed to, they end up at least making one All-Star game. Like, these are guys I think it's pretty likely that they'll make an All-Star game during their career. I say the person I feel the shakiest about is Nate Amit, but I think he just shoots it too well. And, like, I think there's a lot of upside there. So I would think if I was, like, to bet on whether he does or doesn't, I would lean towards he does at some point in his career. And then basically the next, so from Kristen Natt, Tonde, Jaden Clayton, Malik Thomas, Braden Burries, and Cole Pete. these are all guys that, like, I think they could potentially be all-stars one day. Like, it's possible. But they have a few questions that, like, they all need to answer. And I think if they answer them the right way, if they play up to the level that they can, I think that these are, like, surefire guys. Like, you can see them raise up people's boards, get drafted this year. And if they don't, they can even end up as guys who have to come back for a second. And then everybody under that, I have as guys that I think are potential guys that can sneak into the lottery. But, like, to be honest, that tier for me in this class is extremely, like, jam-packed. Like, I have so many guys that I think have, if their season, depending on how their season goes, depending on a million different factors, I could see a world where they could end up in, like, the lottery, or at least the back half of the lottery. And I think that just really speaks to the depth of this class. But these are I think it's like 15, 16 guys that I have kind of in a loose order here. I think it's not necessarily more so the order for me. It's just kind of in that tier, but this is kind of my best crack at it.
No, I think it makes sense. And especially with the lottery potential, it's early. So, I mean, it makes sense to kind of have it that way. But yeah, I think for me, but you kind of addressed it. I was just going to ask about Amit, because he's a guy who I feel like he does have all-star potential, I guess, but it's like things have to go really, really well. And like, even if he doesn't become an all-star, I think just because of his size and like the skill set he does have, he's still like an extremely valuable. Like, I think if he were on a championship team, he could still be like an extremely valuable, like, second or third option.
Yeah, I think, like, he might not be a perennial all-star. Like, I think I'm pretty comfortable saying that at least the top two guys, I could see a world where Cam Boozer is too, like, guys who make it, like, almost every year. Even though that's really hard to say about any prospect, I do just want to throw that out there. Like, that's kind of like a loose term I'm kind of throwing around. But,
I mean,
like,
we're all high on them, so
yeah,
it's fair.
Like, it's really rare just for any guy in any class to be like a perennial all-star. So, but those are three guys I could see it with. I would say those next three are like Michael, I think, can make a lot of them. Caleb might not make necessarily. I don't know if his impact in the league will be like noted like that. Like, I don't think people might value him that way, but I think he could be like one of the best defenders in the league, and I think he could be somebody who, like, impact on winning could be all-star level, even if he doesn't end up making the games because he doesn't score a ton of points.
No, that's valid. Jake, do you have anything?
So here at League Bound Cam, we know about your famous move from Kentucky to Arkansas fandom following Coach Cal. And Arkansas has a lot of really good prospects this year. You have Malik Thomas at 10, Darius Acuff right behind him at 14. What do you like about them? What makes you think Malik Thomas kind of has that slight edge over Darius Acuff in your breakdown in the tier system that you had?
So Acuff, for me, has been really good so far in the scrimmages, but he does have, like, I want to see what the shooting looks like. Just because he is such a small guard, I think he has to be like a really, really, like, consistent shooter and like a real threat to catch and shoot. I don't know if that's there yet. He's somebody I think, like, could definitely be like a really high pick next year if it doesn't go right. Like, I love almost every other part of his game besides the defense is a little bit of a mixed bag. Like, he doesn't really fight over screens that hard, and like he'll beat a guy to a spot and just kind of give the best contest. But I can see, like, a lot of stuff is there on defense. So he's somebody that's like I'm there with, but I do want to see how the shooting pans out over the course of the year. Malik Thomas so far, to me, has been Arkansas's best player in the couple scrimmages so far. He's somebody that I got to see in person a few years back, and I was really impressed on, one, like, the leader he was for his team, and like they had end up playing some team. I want to say it was Team Why Not at the session I was that had Tunde Yesufu on it, Taj Ariza, they had Jason Crow. Like, this is a stacked Why Not team, and he's playing with his EYBL team that isn't necessarily as deep, and he, like, upset them kind of by himself. So he's someone that, like, the knock on him in high school is that he over dribbles. And I think Cal does a good job of getting his guards to, like, kind of play a more streamlined version of themselves. Like he did it with Rob to some success. I think he's doing it with Malik so far. And the way he's been playing, where he has like a really deadly catch and shoot, like and it's like sometimes he's even done it with no dip, which is crazy for somebody his age to be able to do that at that level. And he's also guarding on defense, and he's a good rebounder, and he's not a small guard, so it's kind of an easier sell for me. So that's why I have him over Acuff. Somebody I do want to mention here really quickly though, Billy Richmond is somebody who could like really fly up my board if the shooting is improved. Like I think he's an absolute dynamite athlete. Like he jumps out the gym. He has really good feel for the game. He played point guard for Arkansas at that time last year. Like he has a really good feel. He just was a kind of really bad shooter his first year in college. So far, he's knocked down a few corner threes, and to be honest, he's kind of like the Thompson twins in that sense. Like he might not be that top tier level athlete, like maybe just like one tier below. But if he shoots it at all, like if he can just add a corner three to his game where you have to guard him, I think he just becomes a super valuable player.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair for sure. Like Malik Thomas, he was somebody who, when I was doing my big board, it's like, I guess the dribble concerns and like him kind of playing so fast and not really just letting the game come to him, like that is something that I do kind of want to see a little bit more of. But like you putting him that high, I don't like, I can see it honestly. And especially like you mentioned, those scrimmages, he looked really good. And I think he's 6'5". He's got the confidence. My favorite Malik Thomas quote: "You a fake 4-star. I got 5."
That's fun.
I became a fan instantly. But yeah, Malik Thomas, he's extremely skilled. I think it's just gonna be more about letting the game come to him. And right now, the early returns, they look good. But another person I wanted to ask you about, Isaiah Evans, because you have him at 16, and he's somebody who I think could definitely be big for Duke. But unless he like shoots the ball really, really, really well this year, I don't know if I see him like getting close to the lottery. So try and convince me a little bit more. Like what made you put him so high?
One, the frame looks like it's still not necessarily where it needs to be for the next level yet, but it's like a lot closer than it was last year. Like last year, he was extremely skinny. This year, he's added a little bit to his frame. It hasn't like affected his jump shot. Like he's still shooting the cover off the ball. I think he's legit one of the best shooters in the class. Like I just think he can really shoot it off movement. He can shoot it coming off screens. He's also shown like a little bit more patience this year. Like last year, I think because the way that Duke team was set up, where he wasn't like the main guy, he was like kind of just one of the guys they had as an option to throw in there every once in a while. You could kind of see him like rushing or like speeding through his game to try to like earn minutes on the court, or he just knew if he didn't play good, he'd be yanked out. I think just so far in the few scrimmages we had in their blue-white game, you could really see him making better decisions, being more patient within the offense, and still like shooting it as like one of the best shooters in the class. So if he's going to shoot it at that level, at that size, and he's going to be like able to run, like evolve his game over the year, I just see him as somebody like the shooting is too valuable at that size.
Yeah. My thing is like I want to be extremely high, but like Braylon Mullins, for instance, I think him and Isaiah Evans, they're probably the two, just I guess, best pure shooters in this class. But Mullins is like,
Mullins he's a different level shooter too. Like he's somebody that like I was kind of struggling to place him just because I know that like Dan Hurley does a really good job with this type of archetype of player. However, I was kind of a little disappointed in how like what he did with Liam last year. So it was like kind of like a little bit of caution and like didn't really know exactly where to put him. But I'm really high on Brandon Mullins as well. He's somebody I think will move up my board eventually, but it's kind of just placed them amongst all the players. Like all these guys, like I don't know if you guys like watch college football at all, but like there would be like betting lines where like the number 1 team, the number 3 team would be like +3 difference, but like the number 3 team and the number 6 team could be like 2 touchdown difference. I think all these guys in like this tier are like very, very close for me. So it's like a big difference at all.
All right, Cam. So I got one last question for your preseason big board. Most of these names, if not all of them, I've seen some action from before. But one of them that I'm not too familiar with at number 13 is Neoclis Avdalas from Virginia Tech. Clearly, you're pretty high on him as someone inside your potential lottery. So I just want to give you a chance to kind of break down why you have him that high.
To be honest, like from the tape I've seen of him so far, he just looks like a really good basketball player. Like that's the simplest way I can put it. Like he's kind of good at a lot of things, and he's like has really good size, has really good feel for the game, and he's someone I think like at Virginia Tech he's going to have a lot of opportunity to shine as well. Like it's not like he has to share the ball with like for example the guy we just talked about, Isaiah Evans. He has to share the ball with so many people that like I do think like 16 might have been a little aggressive just because he might not be able to shine really, but Nicholas, I think, has like a lot of skill and he has a lot of opportunity coming up. So like that 13 number is kind of just a bet of his skill with the opportunity. I think is a recipe for like at least a really good impressive freshman.
Yeah, Neoclis is like, I wanted to put him there too, but again, for me, it's kind of like a wait and see. Like he's drawn a lot of comparisons to Yegor Dimon, and I don't know if y'all remember last year, but I was high on him. Then I wasn't high. And for me, it's like the shooting is like a really big thing. And to Yegor's defense, he's shooting the ball well now, but he's just not really getting to the paint. But I think for me, like it's kind of the same thing. Like if that jumper is as good as people, like if that jumper is as good as people are saying, and so far people, like I think John Rothstein, he went to one of their practices and said he's a much better player than Yegor Dimon. I want to see it myself, but yeah, I'm like, if he is like a certified shooter from out there, I'm definitely willing to move him up myself.
Yeah, like for me, like even at the end of the year, I was still kind of high on Yegor just because somebody at that size that can create at that level is impressive to me. But if he's a much better Yegor Dimon, I think he has the potential to even go higher in this class. But yeah, that's just Nicholas is like he's somebody that like when I watched him the first time because I heard his name a few times, but the first time I actually sat down and like watched a couple of his games, I was like, okay, this guy is actually really good. And then I think the last person I want to highlight on my board, Jasper Johnson, is somebody that I think is like kind of prime for like a good year. I think he has really good size, really good length, can shoot it, and he's like sneaky athletic. And like to me, like somebody like to me, he's almost like alternative to Bennett Stokes in a way. Like he might not have the same level of like playmaking, but like the shooting at like a good size for a guard. I think he's somebody that like scouts when they like look at the two later in the year, it could be like a discussion.
Yeah. Also, Boogie Flan, I don't know if you brought that up at all, but he is somebody who I guess like I didn't put him in my big board, but I definitely understand. Like I see a route for him. Can you kind of just talk more about what went into that?
I think that's a bet on like the fit with this roster being a little bit better. I think with like him and Xavier being in the backcourt, I think he's like the better defender of the two. So I think he's going to really shine on that end. Because I think at Arkansas last year, he was really good, at least as the point of attack defender. Like he really gets under guys, he's really fast, and he has active hands. He gets a lot of steals. So I think playing at Florida with that situation around him, I think also it's like there's more players on this roster that can shoot. So I don't think the paint will be as compact as it was for him last year because really, to me, that was the concern. Like, I think the knock on Flan is he's not the greatest finisher at the rim. I think a lot of that kind of came as a function of situation. Like, we noted earlier, like, I do like Arkansas. I was like a kind of pseudo fan of Arkansas. But last year, that roster wasn't like the greatest shooting roster. And I think a lot of time that made him play in like a really tough conference with really good bigs that just clogged the lanes. I think at Florida, he has a much better opportunity that runs like a little bit more of a modern offense. And I think that he's also going to like get to show it on both ends. I do have a lot of like looking at it now, I have a lot of like smaller guards in my first round, but I can't quit him, man. I like small guards. I don't know why.
I mean, it's early too, so it's probably the one time you can get away with it. But like even then, I don't think it's. I think I had quite a bit in mind, so you're not alone, I guess. But yeah, do we have anything else for Cameron, or do we want to move on to mine? All right, my turn for the hot seat. Here's my big board. I kind of did tiers as well, but I wasn't really, since this wasn't a full 60, I wasn't really like too in depth with mine, especially since it's early. For the first three, they're all kind of guys that I kind of see having all NBA potential and like being franchise cornerstones. Like even if they don't, I guess somehow, what's the word? Like even if they aren't necessarily number one options on their team, I still feel like they're valuable guys who like you kind of want a part of your core. Like they'll at least be a 1 or 2 option, just because of what they bring. And then Ament, Brown, and Wilson. Ament is kind of, I don't really know if I see all of these guys being all-stars necessarily, but I think what they do, they have the ability to be such high-level starters. And Brown and Wilson, I think, like Brown is a guy who I have a lot of concerns about him, but I also understand what it is that he does well, and I just kind of want to see how it looks more throughout the season. But for now, I still have him at 5. Wilson is another guy who I'm kind of higher on. Admittedly, I kind of wanted to put him above the 2, just because North Carolina looks like they're really going to unleash him this year. It doesn't look like he's going to be held back. Like when I was taking notes on him over the summer, I was like, he has a lot of really good offensive tools, but what is it going to look like at UNC? And it seems like he's going to kind of be able to just rock out. So he's a guy who I kind of maybe want to put higher as the season goes on, but I'm going to wait and see. And then, yeah, throughout there, it's kind of the same thing as you guys. I don't think it's too different. Yesufu's somebody I'm really high on. Sinek, I think there's a lot of questions. I don't want to go through all of this in order, but I think those are kind of the names that stand out in the lottery. I have Neo pretty high too. Yeah, Nick Kaminya is also another person I want to highlight just because I know there's kind of a logjam in the wing room at Duke, but he's one of those guys who like, I know he didn't have the greatest FIBA, but when I was like watching some of those games, like he made some plays that really jumped out to me. I don't know. And like I kind of dug into him some more, and I feel like he's got good tools. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. He's a good shooter. He's got nice feel. And I feel like he can be a pretty impactful NBA player, so that's kind of why I put him there. Yeah. Oh yeah, and then the last 3 I'll address, because for this, if this were like a full 60 big board, this would probably be a little bit different. But I put some of these guys in because they're guys who I could see going in the first or like maybe higher, but I think there's also more they need to add. Like Isaiah Evans, I think is a really good shooter, but to me, I'm kind of like, I want to see more outside of that. And even if he doesn't do more, like I want to see him shoot the ball really, really well. JoJo Tugler, like he's a great defensive player, but obviously I think offense is a little bit of a question. And then Bryson Tiller, this one, I know I'm a little bit biased as a KU fan, but I think for me, like with Darren Peterson kind of being the guy he is, and like that team, they're kind of a younger team. And I felt like inevitably somebody is going to kind of rise up and go and get drafted alongside with them, especially because of how good of a playmaker Peterson is. Initially, I thought it was going to be either Badunga or Rosario, and like it's still early, so it could be one of them. But Tiller is another guy who's like, he's 6'10", like, and he can just make plays. Like, I don't know how to describe it. And it's a small sample size, but it was kind of enough to make me think, like, I think it could be him who's the guy who maybe slides up some draft boards. And I think there's a lot to like. Like, he can make plays offensively. You know, he was throwing lobs to Badunga, but also defensively, he's really sound. Yeah, so Tiller, the R&B singer is somebody who I went ahead and put in my top 30. But yeah, you guys can open it up. What do y'all have for me?
I'll start here. So, couple guys see here. Hans Steinbeck is somebody I've seen a little bit of. I think both of you have him in yours. I don't think I have him in mine. Just kind of give me the elevator pitch on it.
Yeah, Steinbeck, he's somebody I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit iffy on where to place him. But I feel like at Washington, he's gonna kind of have the reins to be a major producer. And like it's weird because his play style, at least at how it looks like at Washington, I feel like it's not necessarily gonna be like the most NBA style type of play, but I feel like he just has pretty good feel. He rebounds. Like I feel like just of the forwards, he's gonna wind up going pretty. I don't want to say pretty high, but I could see him shooting up, especially because it seems like he's gonna have such high usage. So that's kind of what went into that. Admittedly, he is somebody who I'm like, okay, I'll put him here, but I do want to see a little bit more. So, and it's kind of the same with Ngangba too. That's kind of why they're right next to each other. Yeah, I would try to be more like convincing with it, but I think Steinbach is somebody who I kind of have to convince myself a little bit more too. But I kind of see the vision, but kind of don't. It's weird that I have him in my 30, but that's just how I feel.
I kind of felt a lot the same way. Like I could see it, and then like some of the songs like this is just not gonna translate, or I don't know how it translates. It depends. Like I don't know. He's somebody that I need to see a little bit more of to like give like a more entrenched opinion on. But he's definitely somebody like I consider for my top 30. I just ended up not being able to put him in.
For me, let's talk about the Arizona duo. I don't think we've talked about them much in this big board episode yet. I like watching the Koa Pete highlights. I think with his physicality, he's one of the more fun players to watch. You have a pretty decent gap between Braden Burries and Koa Pete. So, what have you liked more from Braden Burries, or is it more of a Koa Pete thing where you think he's maybe less ready at this point for NBA level?
I'd say it's a little bit of both, but I'd say it's more, I'm just kind of higher on Burries. Pete is a guy who I'm like, I just don't really know how to feel about him, especially like kind of seeing what it looks like at Arizona. Like you said, he's got an interesting game because he's built like a football player,
He's like
6'8".
a linebacker. It's insane.
Yeah, he's strong. Like, but it's weird because I feel like to me, when I watch him play offense, he reminds me a lot of Paulo, but I feel like he doesn't have the same type of skill set, which is weird to say. And
like I get what you're saying. They move in like similar ways. It's kind of like strange. Like it's definitely something I've thought about before. It's just like they're too different to say it, but they're not at the same time.
Yeah, and I think he's obviously also a little bit shorter too. But it's like and he doesn't really shoot the ball that great. So, and I think the defense, it can be good at times, but it's not great. So I don't know. I just don't know if I really am that sold on his ceiling, but he has the physicals and he's played a lot of good basketball just to be I still think be a really good role player in the NBA. So that's kind of why I have him in that range. Burries is like, obviously he's 6'3", like, and he's not like the most athletic guy, but I feel like he's extremely skilled. And like, for me, it's like, if you're not going to be a athletic guy, like a twitchy first step, I feel like you kind of have to have the strength. And Burries is somebody who I feel like definitely has that to make up for it. Like Jared McCain is a good example of that also, I feel like. Although when he got to the league, I was like, he might be a little bit quicker than people think. But yeah, I think Burries has a lot of those qualities to make up for it that I kind of want a guard to have. Admittedly, though, I think part of why I have Burries high is also just because I'm projecting what it'll look like a little bit. because I think there are definitely still some questions, but I feel like I think I talked about it before on one of the episodes, but I kind of feel like there are going to be moments where he's the guy who just shines offensively, and like if the three ball looks good, like he's getting downhill, at ease, making plays, like I feel like that could be really valuable. And like if he goes to the NBA and brings a lot of those skill sets, maybe he even takes a leap as like this major on ball point guard. I don't know. Like Burries is a guy I'm pretty high on just because of the things that he does already. And like I think there's a lot of room where he could improve, and I think he'll have the chance to do it.
Yeah, I think it could be a situation where maybe after an Arizona game, maybe after a big win, the big highlight is a Koa Pete big slam in transition. But once that final box score pops up, it's like a Braden Burries 24 points on 5 made threes, something like that, where it's like, yeah, Koa Pete had the big play, but it was pretty clear maybe Braden Burries is that number one on the team. So I definitely understand that.
He's like a bucket getter. He has some stuff to him. In the EYBL a couple times, he took over a few games where it's like kind of just put his team on his back. He gets downhill at a good rate. He's like really physical for his like size. Like he gets into people. He kind of reminds me of like not as good, but like a lot of stuff he does kind of reminds me of like Dylan Harper a little bit. Like it's kind of similar. Like just the physicality they play with is a little bit similar to me. Jake, I know you mentioned earlier, like we kind of don't know who the best guard is after Brown. I think Burries might end up being that answer, depending on how the season goes. But Brandon, something I wanted to ask you on because your 4 to 6 is originally how I had mine, and then I think I texted you last second to change it. And it's just because the reason I did that is because I asked myself a question, and like I really had to confront myself on how I felt about it. Why is Nate Mint better than Caleb Wilson?
No, I think that's a valid question. For me, it's like it's also taking into account a little bit of what he's done last year. I mean, I guess no duh, that's everybody on this list. But I think I kind of came to terms like after watching that first game, which I know I shouldn't have done because it's one small sample size, but that game against Duke, I feel like he's just going to be forced to do a lot of things that I don't know. Like Rick Barnes was talking about how, or on the broadcast, they were talking about how Rick Barnes was basically pitching him as like the next KD. Like, and that's how he got him to come in. And where I'm trying to go with this is I feel like there are going to be times where it's just not going to be comfortable for him. But I still really like what he has. Like he's 6'9", 6'10". No, obviously he's a little skinny, but he shoots the ball. And when I was watching a lot of his film over the summer, like I feel like he's also a pretty solid playmaker too at times. I think the skill set is just really valuable. And on top of what he can add defensively, Wilson, he's a guy who I'm like, I mentioned before, I'm like, I am kind of like looking for a reason to put him up there, but I'm still trying to be like level headed. But I think with him, it's like he can do so much offensively and like he's a freak athlete, like, but I don't know. Like, I still think there's going to be a little bit of a question mark just because one, I don't know if he's even hit a jumper yet. And like as good as he can handle the ball, I do think that'll kind of limit some of his, I guess, upside. And for me, it's like it's really thin. But I think Amit all around, he's just really skilled and he has the defensive upside. And like Wilson, I think could be really good on the defensive side of the ball. But I still just want to know what the offense is going to look like in the NBA. So for me, that's kind of why I put him higher, even though I think throughout the season, Amit is just going to look really uncomfortable. So I think that could change very quickly, but we'll see.
For me, it came down to like when I was comparing them, like, all right, Nate definitely shoots better. That's not even a question at this point. Nate shoots the ball a lot better. However, like almost everything else, I think like I kind of gave like slight edges or definite edges to Caleb Wilson. Like I think Caleb you can kind of just use in more spots. Like I think he fits with more teams. even though 6'10" guy can shoot kind of fits anywhere. But I just think Caleb Wilson, like the level of defense he can get to. And I think all that's missing from the offense is the shot. Like I know it's like a big thing that's missing. Like the shot has to come along, but I think if he ever gets like a serviceable shot, I think he's like a really, really impactful NBA player. So that's just an interesting like debate I was having with myself between these two. I do agree with you though. I think Nate's situation might be better for development, even though it might not look best. Like it might not look the best at times this year, but I think like I don't know because UNC does look like they're going to let Wilson rock, but Tennessee also looks like they're going to push a Mick to kind of get better in the areas he's not. So it'll be interesting to watch both of them.
Yeah, and to Nate's credit, I feel like a lot of why it's so uncomfortable is just because he's not there yet physically. Like, because that game against Duke, it was really just like a lot of post ups, and admittedly, I do kind of wish they would get him out more on the perimeter and like have him work from there. And like he doesn't have bursts, but I still think he's got the length where like there was one play where, he got a really long closeout. I forgot who it was from, and then he just drove baseline, jammed on him. So, we'll see how it looks a few games in, but yeah, that was a toss up for me as well. All right. So we have reviewed all of our big boards. Personally, I feel like we all had pretty reasonable big boards. It's also kind of early in the season too, but there wasn't anything I was like scratching my eyeballs out at. Yeah, I'm just really excited for the season to start tomorrow or today, depending on when I have this up. We got our first bit of games, and we have a lot of prospects playing. We have AJ playing Florida and Arizona, so we'll see a bunch of these guys that we just talked about. But yeah, unless you guys have anything you guys want to add, I think we're good to go. All right.
I'm excited, man.
All right.
Start tomorrow.
All right. Okay. Okay.
I tried to say something. All right.
Okay. If you guys enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.